I'm Betty Swan, and welcome to our show, Wisdom in the Night, where you get help for the tough decisions in your life. Tonight I have a great guest. He's an asset manager. Welcome, Don Choi. It's just great to have you on the show. I'm eager to find out all about your life. So tell me about your life, a little bit of your background, where you're from, your folks, your family, so on.
Sure. So I was actually born in Korea. Me and my family has moved to America when I was about 4 years old.
So you can remember living in Korea?
A little bit, not too much. It's a little bit hazy, but there's definitely few memories I still have of living in Korea. So then when our family moved to America, we moved into New Jersey. So I grew up in New Jersey. I went to school in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey more specifically. And I went to school and college in upstate New York at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute.
Oh, I know where that is. We used to live in upstate New York.
Oh, okay. So, and it's a nice area, and I enjoyed my 4 years there. And after I graduated from there, I moved back to New Jersey to be with my family. And then I started looking for job opportunities. And in a couple years after college, I finally landed a job that interested me. And ever since then, I moved into the city.
Yeah, so what do you do actually?
So I work for a credit fund. Within that firm, I actually work in asset management team, which basically we monitor and overlook all the different investments of our firm, to making sure that all of them are performing as per expected.
So what do you feel like is going to happen with the economy and going forward in the United States? Think it's going to be good? You think it's going to be hard?
It's tough to say right now. I think there's a lot of uncertainties still. There's obviously our economy has progressed and has performed well the last couple of years. There are people who would still believe that our economy could continue our expansion with interest rates starting to rise up a little bit, with job growth is going well, and with the wage growth also being well too. But so it's tough to say, but I think for the near term, next year or two, I think you could say that our economy will continue to do okay and continue to expand for the next couple of years.
Yeah. Now, when you're managing assets, is it like the assets of your company or people who invest through your company?
So it's people who invest through our company. So we're basically a fund manager for institutional investors. So we, with the money that they invest in us, we go out and start making investments by buying different type of assets.
Right. I've always wanted to ask someone that does kind of like what you do with OPM, other people's money.
Yep.
Do you ever have sleepless nights, or do you ever think, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What if this isn't right?
For most part, I think we feel okay. I think we are diligent in where we invest our investors' money, and I think everyone works hard in making sure that we protect it and we're good fiduciaries of it. So I think we feel okay at the end of the day.
So do you invest your own money and enjoy doing that?
I do. There's definitely. I primarily just, for most part, just invest in a lot of equities or stocks. I do invest in other, mutual funds and stuff like that too. For long term, investing for my own personal savings, stuff like that. So I do enjoy it. I think it's definitely exciting. You be involved in the market and how the market operates, and to generate a good return over long term.
If somebody were watching this, and they are, that was young, and they think, well, I don't know, I don't make much money, and I don't know if I can even think in terms of investing, what would you tell a young person on how to get their finances in a shape that they could begin to do things with their life, financially, in terms of preparing? What's your advice?
Well, one is that to know, keep a budget for yourself. know how much money you make, and then also where you want to spend your money. Always allocate some of your income into savings: long-term saving, medium-term saving, short-term savings.
All three areas.
If you can, I believe it's important to do so. I think if you continue to stay disciplined to that plan that you draft for yourself, I think in the long term it will be a great benefit for you.
Mm-hmm. And then what would you say to someone who's watching that maybe they've been through some kind of a business setback, a business failure, and they're starting again, and they're really going along pretty well. It's been hard, and just to even actually build back up to where they can take care of themselves in their regular life. But what is your advice to people when they come to you like that?
Well, it really depends how big of a setback it is, right, and how much difficulty they're going through. But one thing I would just tell them is that don't be discouraged. Don't put your head down. I'll continue to encourage them that fight through it. Continue. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Don't think this is something that you can't dig yourself out of. I think if you continue to take a step back and look at your financial situation, there's a way in time you could get out of it.
It's very good, very good. Now, as a businessman or in the field you're in, I know you have a very close walk with the Lord too. Is that right?
Correct.
How did you get that?
So, so growing up, actually, were a non-believer. I actually didn't have a great view of Christianity or Christian people. I actually thought that a lot of them were, in a lot of ways, hypocrites. So therefore, I try to not associate with a lot of Christians growing up. But I've been blessed to have one friend in high school that he was a great believer. He had a strong faith in God. But I respect him as a person. What I saw in him is that what he believed in, he actually backed up with action.
Now, what do you mean by that?
So I could visibly see him live by his faith. So meaning that he treats people well. He doesn't go out and do other sort of things, other extracurricular activities in which you wouldn't want to see a believer in necessarily. So one thing we had a common ground was that we both liked playing basketball. So when we played basketball, here and there would share a little bit of his faith and his belief. And because I respect him as a person, I actually listened to what he was saying. But it didn't really make that much impact at that point in time. But looking back at it, I feel like there are certain seeds that were planted in me during that time.
Well, so what turned you off against Christianity? You said you weren't a believer and you saw things you didn't like. But what was it? What was it? People around you? What was that?
I think it's just people around me. It's like so my parents actually took me to church a couple of times when I was in high school and middle school, and few of those people at the church I actually knew because I saw them in certain party scenes and whatnot, stuff like that growing up, and it just seems odd to me how they live their life outside church and how they are at church is very contradictory. And that kind of turned me off in a lot of ways.
I think that turns a lot of people off. I think one way it especially turns people off is if you're going to be a Christian, be kind and loving. And maybe they're not.
Correct.
Right. Or if you're going to be a Christian, then conduct your business the way a Christian ought to conduct their business.
Correct.
Right? You agree with that?
Agreed.
Yeah. So what do you do now to have a deep relationship with God?
So, for me, I'm very much involved in the church community. I attend Bible study groups, and I serve at the church almost every Sunday. And I find joy in that because the reason why is that, I feel like, God always reached out to me and really kind of, in a lot of ways, in a sense, served me in a sense first, right? Reach out to me first, loved me first, cared for me first. And I want to reciprocate that love to other people, whether it be sort of volunteering at church and greeting people as people come to the church, and making feel welcome and loved, or whether it be me, like with my friends and people around me, trying to just respect them, love them, care for them, listen to them, and stuff like that.
Do you read your Bible?
I do.
How do you read it very often?
I do. My goal is every day, and then for the most part, I do.
And so, how do you read it? Do you have a reading plan?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I follow a certain structure when I read the Bible, but there are other times where I just pick up Bible and just skim through a specific book and then pick one and just start reading.
There's people watching right now that say, that book's an ancient book. That book was written a long time ago. It's not relevant for my life today. There are more books that are more relevant. So what would you say to someone that's watching this show that would say to you, Don, why do you read it?
Because, I believe it's the Word of God. I believe.
What do you mean by that?
I believe it's His voice.
God's voice.
Yes.
Okay.
So I believe that through His writing from a long time ago, He still speaks through those words. So meaning that when I read it, there are certain words that really press into my heart, where, in some way, forms, I feel like through those words, God spoke to me a very specific message, or it's kind of in the sense of Him communicating to me a specific situation. So it's very.
That's very interesting. Are you saying that because God is eternal, what He wrote a long time ago is as relevant today as it will be 2,000 years from now? Are you saying that?
Correct. I believe
Because
so.
it's God.
Yes.
All right. But you're saying when you read it, you can tell He's speaking to you about what? About certain things in your life, or what to be thinking about for the future? Things like that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. There's one particular, I remember God spoke to me very specifically, was through the parable about the master giving a certain amount of talents of silver to each of his servants.
Okay, kind of tell me about that story. What is that?
So the master provides 3 servants a certain allotted talent of silver.
Each person got a certain amount of silver?
Correct.
Okay.
And he told his servants that he's going to be away for a while. I give you responsibility of taking care of these silvers or talents, and try to produce or earning from it.
Okay.
Put it to work.
Which would be great for your line of work. I no wonder you appealed with that. It had meaning for you. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So he travels away, and then he comes back, and then he wants to see what they did with it. And one servant will come out and say, "Master, you gave me 2 allotted of silvers, and I produced 1." And then another one came and said, "Master, you gave me 3 allotted of silvers, and I produced 2." And then the third one said that, "Master, I was afraid, that I might lose it, and therefore I just dug the ground and then put it under the ground for safekeeping, so no one steals it, or I don't lose it." So basically, what was given to him, he basically did nothing with it. And at the end of the message, basically what it is that the master said to the 2 who actually, with what he was given to them, did something with it. He said that because your faithfulness, what you did with what I've given you, I'll give you 5 or 10 times more responsibilities to you. And
So are you saying then that God is saying in that story, He expects us to use the talents He's given us?
agreed.
Or
So-
even the money He's given us?
Yes.
Right?
So the message I got from it, I felt, because it was very timely, because I was complaining about not enjoying what I do, or complaining about certain aspects of my life, and I felt, and God spoke that. I feel like God pressed that message into my heart, meaning that He said, "And whatever responsibility, whatever I have given you, do your best. If you continue to be faithful to what I've given you, being a great steward, then I will add more."
Have you seen that happen in your life?
I have.
In all kinds of ways?
In all kinds of ways, in aspect of my career, an aspect of at church, an aspect of my role in my family, in every aspect.
Yeah. Now, you're single, right?
I am
Okay, so you're how old?
35.
35. And you're probably approaching the time that you'd like to be married, right?
Correct.
So what do you think as a young Christian man, and you're wanting to have a family, I assume, how do you know what to look for in a wife?
So I always had certain idea, what qualities I want to look for in a girl. But, as I spent time with God and I was praying to Him one night, I felt like God was speaking to me to open my eyes and lift up my future wife to Him. So I started doing that, not knowing exactly what that meant. But I think as I continued praying and thinking about my wife, what she would look like, what type of person she is, and then God started opening my eyes to different qualities that's important.
Oh.
And more spiritual qualities.
Okay, like what?
So like a godly woman, a woman who prays, a woman who loves to serve, a woman who will be, a specific word that God gave to me was a co-laborer. That my future wife would be a co-laborer with me in regards to ministry and many other things that I care about and is important to me.
So are you saying then that for a man that's watching this, or a woman, but a man, are you saying that if he would pray about, God, what do I need to be looking for in a mate, God would specifically say certain things, like a co-laborer, meaning you're going to be doing something that in the kingdom of God, in serving people, that you need somebody who will identify with that and want to be a part of that, right?
Correct.
It's very interesting, because then I'm thinking about, what do you think God's purpose is for your life? Do you know?
Now I have a better idea. But,
Yeah?
But when I first became a believer, I actually had no idea what God had in store for me. I just, when He shared with me that parable, I just realized that, whatever's in front of me, I'm going to just do my best and trust that God, being the author of my life, He will start revealing and opening doors for me. And I think as you continue just being faithful to what He's given you, He'll start opening different doors and giving bigger dreams and visions for your life.
Do you believe in being a big dreamer?
I do. Growing up, I was not much of a big dreamer. So, but now with relationships with God, He's shown me and teaching me how to dream big.
So what did He teach you? How do you go from not being a big dreamer to being a big dreamer? How do you go from that?
So, so the way I go about it is that when I look up to Him, I see a God who's a big God, a God who can do anything and everything. So with Him, it's unlimited. Like the potential is limitless. When we think about dreams, we could see ourselves doing certain things. But with God, it could be far exceed that by many times.
Yes. Have you ever read that verse in Ephesians 3:20 that says, God is able to do more than you would ever think of, hope for, wish, far above anything? Well, to me, Don, that's another reason why to be a big dreamer, because if God's going to do more than you can even think of or ask for or hope for, then why don't you get busy thinking up some big stuff and then see what He does? I've lived like that, and it has happened.
Yeah.
Definitely happened, where I've lived way above anything I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
Have you been like that?
So I haven't as much, but in the last year or so, I have been doing more of that. I think just giving God the opportunity to fill those dreams for you by offering up, lifting up to Him and imagining Him.
Well, great. Now, do you pray a lot?
I do.
Every day or many times a day? How do you pray?
So I pray every day. I set a time every day where I could spend a quality time with God on a one-on-one basis. So for me, I'm actually not a morning person, so I'm more a night person. So therefore, my quiet time happens at the end of the day, then beginning of the day. So at the end of the day, let's say from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, or maybe a little longer, I was allocate that time, turn everything off, get away from all distraction.
Away from your iPhone?
Away from my phone.
That's my problem. That texting or checking things or looking at Facebook is like, don't do it for a little bit.
So yeah, away from my phone, away from any form of distraction, and I spend time in praying and reading the Word during that hour, or maybe longer than that, on an everyday basis.
So if a person were watching this show and they said, I've never even prayed at all, I don't even know how you even get started. How do you talk to God?
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
So when I became a believer, I didn't fully understand the concept of prayer. Rightfully so, right? So I actually reached out to people, asked God to teach me how to pray.
Oh, you did?
I did. So I asked God, teach me how to pray. What does it mean to pray? How do I connect with you on a day-to-day basis and hear your word? Because a lot of people also struggle. You hear people say, "Oh, I heard from God this and this."
Yeah, God said
But
this and God
it's hard
said
for
that.
people to grasp what that truly means. So I asked God for what that meant, and then when I asked for that, actually a couple weeks later, through the church I attend to, had at that season, that point in time, we had a school of prayer. So I was excited because this is kind of answered prayer for me. So I went to it, and then there's this guy who's a strong prayer warrior. He prays a lot and knows how to pray very effectively. He taught us some biblical concepts on how you approach to God in prayer. And then he shared us kind of a format that helps us to just understand the flow of it and help us to spend more time with him on a longer basis.
Do you believe that when you talk to God, you ought to talk to him just like you're talking to anybody else? Or do you believe there should be some other form?
No, I think the way I approached it, just like we were having a one-on-one conversation.
Like this
here,
right now?
Just like this. I'm to make it more real to me. When I pray, when I close my eyes, I picture God right in front of me. And if he was right in front of me, what would I say to him? So when I picture him right in front of me, first thing I always say is that I just worship him, praise him, thank him for the qualities and characters of who he is, the God he is, and why I appreciate him for that, and why I thank him for today. Because when you meet someone like this, as glorious and mighty of a God like he is that's the first thing I feel like you want to say. Just thanking him, praising him, and focusing on who he is. And then after that, then I start talking about what's going on in my life. So it's kind of shit like, let's say a son going to a father, say, hey, your father say, how's your day? And your son's kind of explaining to him what's going on in his life. So I tell him like every aspect of my life and what's going on, what concerns I have, how I feel about it, and what I'm believing for, what I'm asking God to come into.
It's just like you would with a good friend, isn't it?
I agree, yep.
And you're comfortable with that?
I am. Initially, it takes a little time to get used to, but after a while, once you really help visualize him being in front of you, it makes it more tangible.
So in learning all of these things and having people in your life to teach you, what would you say are some of the greatest pieces of wisdom you have been taught?
I guess one thing that always resonated with me is that be proactive, meaning that in everything that we do with a sense of purpose, and just really pursue God in all those areas. Don't be comfortable, don't sit around waiting for God to move or God to say something, but go out and just be proactive in all that you do.
And do you find that more things happen in your life by being proactive than when you're sitting around?
I do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's so hard, I think, for people to say, well, how do you know when to wait on God? And how do you know when to move on and do what you think you ought to do? So how do you deal with that?
One thing is that the beauty of God is that there's a lot of grace involved. So, we could make mistakes, but as long as we have the right intention at heart and really being mindful of the situation and mindful of God. And trust God that He will lead you and somehow and be with you and help you kind of go through different things. So,
Have you ever been through tough times with God and challenges?
I have. There's there's definitely, times where I get frustrated with God, where I've been praying for certain things and the answer to certain prayers doesn't come for a long time, or I see family difficulties, or I see career difficulties and stuff like that. So there's definitely times where it's challenging with God.
Okay, but in that, did it eventually work out like you thought it would, or are there things that you're still waiting on?
I'll say that it didn't necessarily work out the way I thought it would, but it worked out for the better good.
So there's a Bible verse that says, all things work together for good to them, to those that love God, who are fitting into His purposes for their life. That a lot of times people say, well, everything always works out for the best, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Some things don't.
Yeah.
But if you love God and you're determined to fit your life into His purposes, He guarantees it will work out for good. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You've had a lot of wisdom in the interview, a lot of wisdom that I think people can really use. I want to talk to those of you that are watching this show and thinking about the things that Don has said, how the Bible has meaning to him, how he learned how to pray and talk to God, and he could actually hear God talking back to him. Well, God's not someone that says this is only for certain people. It's for anybody that wants it. Do you want it? If you do, you can say, God, come into my life like this man has you. I want to know you like this. And I promise you, He will come in. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in. It wasn't an accident that you turned on the TV or got on your computer. I hope you received some wisdom and that you have a great rest of the night, whether you're going to work or going to sleep. I'll see you next time. Bye.